There was no time to waste for the sly woman. Most of the time, she came during rush hour when no one could see her. It didn't occur to her that someone was watching her. There was someone who knew what she was up to and who disrupt her plans. The days of causing confusion at the garage were over for her. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Sergio Rodriguez has worked at the small gas station on the outskirts of town for ages. There were plenty of weird customers he encountered, until one lady arrived. His days were predictable, monotonous. A mysterious woman appeared at the gas station, her presence bringing a sense of unpredictability and curiosity. Despite the humdrum of daily life, he knew the regulars and routines. Recently, he had noticed a peculiar customer, Brenda Piper, who owned a luxury car. A few days ago, Sergio noticed Brenda was acting unusually. Despite driving a car that didn't need fuel, she found herself at the pump, filling the tank as if it was a routine. As Sergio scratched his head in confusion, he couldn't help but feel a bit lost. An electric car owner should not refuel at a gas station. In several consecutive days, Sergio watched Brenda try to fill up at the gas station. He thought it was odd since Teslas don't run on gas. With each passing day, Sergio became more intrigued behind the counter. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. In any case, if he offended one of their customers, he would get in trouble. Brenda always walked away whenever Sergio approached her. Her eyes stayed away from his gaze as she waved him off. In a hurry, she filled the tank and sped away, leaving Sergio puzzled. This was the first time he had ever seen anyone behave in such an erratic manner. Sergio watched closely as she returned the next day. As Brenda attempted to fill up her electric car with gas once more, he was surprised. Her peculiar behavior caught Sergio's attention and she was holding the nozzle at different angles, adjusting it, and even placing it underneath the car. Sergio was puzzled and concerned, so he decided to take action. As he could no longer contain his curiosity, Sergio approached Brenda one afternoon. After running behind her car, he cut her off. The man cleared his throat as she fumbled with the nozzle. "Ma'am, I noticed you've been filling up every day, but your car is electric." "Teslas do not need gas." Brenda looked at Sergio, her eyes narrowing. "You know what I'm doing," she replied curtly, brushing him off. Brenda scoffed and waved him off dismissively. Without another word, she quickly jumped into her Tesla, the tires screeching as she sped away, leaving Sergio standing there with more questions than answers. And she was very rude towards him. The mystery of Brenda Piper lingered in Sergio's mind like a persistent itch. He took pride in his job and he was only trying to help. Why would someone with an electric car waste time and money at a gas station? And Namnati's looking, it made no sense, and Sergio couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Days turned into nights and Brenda's visits continued. Sergio observed her ritualistic behavior, each time hoping for an explanation but receiving only silence. He considered asking his co-workers if they had noticed anything strange about Brenda, but he feared they would dismiss him as paranoid. Days passed and Sergio's curiosity deepened. He watched as Brenda returned each day, seemingly performing some strange ritual at the fuel pump. Puzzled, Sergio decided to take matters into his own hands and called the local officers to investigate. He kept an eye on Brenda as he dialed the emergency number. He discreetly dialed the local police station, tipping them off about Brenda's unusual actions. 2 officers arrived at the gas station, and Sergio pointed them in Brenda's direction. When the officers, Officer Mills and Officer Walker, observed her from a distance. The officers watched Brenda for a few minutes. "What's going on here?" Sergio Officer Mills asked, narrowing his eyes. "She's been doing this for days now, filling up a Tesla like it's a gas guzzler." "Something's not right," Sergio replied, his voice tinged with unease. What were the officers going to do to the unsuspecting customer? As Brenda continued her baffling routine, the officers exchanged glances. They couldn't ignore the suspicion any longer. Officer Mills signaled for Officer Walker to take the back of the car. Approaching her with a stern expression, Officer Walker commanded, "Ma'am, is everything okay here?" He stood in front of Brenda, who couldn't believe there was an officer in front of her. Brenda froze, her eyes widening with shock. "What? Why? This is ridiculous. Did I do something wrong?" She tried to edge her way to the driver's door. Officer Mills stepped forward, his tone firm. "We've been getting reports about your activities here. Now do as we say." Brenda reluctantly complied. Her knees were shaking and she looked visibly scared. The officers circled her, their eyes scanning for any signs of wrongdoing. "What's the meaning of this?" Brenda demanded, her frustration evident. The officers started looking around the vehicle. Officer Walker ignored her question and focused on inspecting her car. They were looking for something. "You can't do this?" Brenda shouted. His experienced eyes quickly caught sight of something amiss, a hidden compartment beneath the Tesla, cleverly concealed from the untrained eye. What was underneath the car? That fateful afternoon, Sergio observed Brenda once again. She was uneasy. He had a feeling that she was engaged in a peculiar activity. She noticed him staring at her and gave him a foul glare. The officers searched the car promptly. trusting Sergio from previous encounters. They were looking for something specific. Sergio walked up to the officers and tried to help them. Sergio helped the officers to look under the car. "Something fishy about that lady," one of the officers remarked. The other officer was standing guard, making sure she didn't make a break for it. The garage attendant nodded in agreement. As he searched the bottom of the car, they found a few canisters fastened to the undercarriage. What were they there for? Sergio showed the officer the plastic canisters filled with petrol. Sergio nodded. "I don't think she understands her Tesla doesn't need fuel. You better check it out." The officer tried to shine his torch under the car, and when he spotted the canister, he got a surprise. Sergio also realized what the plastic bottles were for. They had an idea of what Brenda was doing. The officers approached Brenda discreetly, observing her for a few moments before intervening. "Can you step away from the pump?" one of them requested. Officer Walker said, "We found something strange under your vehicle. Can you explain what it is?" But Brenda was quiet. She didn't know what to say at that moment. She was already caught and couldn't make the officers angry. Brenda, caught off guard, hesitated but complied. She slowly walked toward her car and started fiddling with the plastic bottles. It seemed as though she was filling the bottles with petrol or diesel. The officers examined her unusual behavior, watching her fiddle with the pump in her car for about 5 minutes. What Brenda showed them made them react in emergency mode. Sensing something wasn't right, they decided to take action. Officer Miller stood in front of Brenda with his handcuffs. "Drop down and get on all fours," commanded the officer. They suspected that Brenda was filling gallons of petrol and storing them under her car. Brenda screamed but had no choice but to comply. A few other patrons at the garage got scared and drove off. Brenda was so embarrassed that people were crowding around them to see what. Brenda, indignant and defensive, protested, "This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything wrong." "Let me go," Brenda tried to defend herself. "I'm paying for my fuel." "It's great," but Officer Miller already had cuffs around her wrists. "Madam, you have the right to remain silent," he said sternly. As Brenda cried, Sergio ran to get the manager. He would know what to do. It was the first time they caught someone stealing. The officers, undeterred, waited for Sergio to join them and called the garage manager to inspect the scene. The tension in the air was palpable as the garage manager arrived, examining the situation with a furrowed brow. Well, what have we got here?" the manager mused, eyeing the officers and Brenda. They explained the story and Brenda immediately admitted that she was in the wrong. The officers presented their findings, explaining Brenda's strange actions. Sergio backed them up, saying that he had seen her do it many times before. The garage manager's decision hung in the balance. Would Brenda be let go or face consequences for her mysterious activities? The gas station buzzed with suspense as everyone awaited. And the manager's judgment. "I can do it's no for it's you as the station. It's busy you like."